Assalamu alaikum, fam. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our reading of Machiavelli. You've heard a lot about him, right? But have the people actually read about him? A lot of people call everything Machiavellian, and sometimes you have to be like, hey, let's correct the record, buddy. If you have a cat, you should totally name your cat Machiavelli, because cats want to take over the world. Alright, we're in chapter 3 on mixed principalities, okay? It's been quite interesting. But when states are acquired in a country, differing in language, laws, and customs, this is where the difficulties arise, and it requires good fortune as well as great industriousness to hold on to them. So here's another interesting point. So you got this new land. It's very different in the culture. It's like everything there is going to make it super difficult for you to maintain it, and you have to be industrious about keeping it within the fold. This has been an argument that people have used about America's wars in the East. That they say is about freedom, but it's like you can't hold that territory because it's completely different. Maybe they don't want a Burger King, right? They don't want to have the same type of casinos and crap. So it's going to be hard for you to hold that territory. People are going to want to rebel. They want you out, right? This is a good point. And this is shown throughout history. I don't remember, was it the Jerkid? That's too shame. I can't remember which tribe Genghis Khan took over, but they didn't like him, and as soon as he left, they rebelled, and he went back and wiped them all out. But it was hard for him to hold on to it when they were so different, so he just executed them all. Sometimes leaders, unfortunately, because they can't hold on to a difficult country, they'll do an ethnic genocide to unite it and make it back to what it was. Actually, you know what? This is probably, sadly, the reasoning China thinks they need to execute the Muslim Uyghurs. They think maybe it's better to just genocide them than to keep them within the fold because it's just too difficult, because they're a different value system than the Communist Party, right? Because remember, communism needs more unification, right? So, quite sad. But you can see he has a practical point strategically, which will enlighten us on the difficulties of political science, right? And one of the best and most effective remedies would be for the person who has acquired them to take up his residence there. Aha! You see that? So, you take over the new territory, right? You're the head schmacho macho. If you leave with your army, and you don't stay there, how well will the people begin to adapt to your rule? As soon as you leave, they're going to try to figure out a way to rebel. Some people argued that Alexander stayed too long in some of his territories, and others argued that he stayed there so that he could get the people to not want to rebel later, right? This would render their possession more secure and durable, as the Turk has done in Greece. And in spite of all other the measures taken by him to hold on to that state, it would not have been possible to keep it, had he not gone there to live. Think about that. So if you are someone, pretend we live in the 14th century, we're conquering stuff. You get this new territory, you say, you know what, I gotta stay here and live because I need to get these people to recognize my authority, not want to rebel, and then, once they're into me, we can dip out and we can travel, right? But they have to have a sort of bond to you in a way. It's very, very true point, right? For, by being on the spot, one can see disorders as they arise. See, you're actually there, you can see, okay, we got a problem coming over with this faction, right? Let's deal with this faction, let's get them back into the fold so they don't break off into a confederacy, keep them within the union, boom, we see the problems. This is why I think more politicians should be sourced from the poorer communities, from where they live, to rule them. right? If you get too many outsiders coming into rural an area, they don't know the local problems. This becomes an issue with the culture and differences of somebody who is overly an aristocrat and someone who's close to the regular people. Because if you live on the place that you're ruling, you'll be able to see problems and know what needs to go on, right? Instead of, oh, I only been there for a little while and then learn. Very interesting. You can quickly remedy them, but when you do not live there, they are only heard about when they have increased. So if you're there, quick remedy, you'll see it when it's a sprout. If you're far away, you're going to hear about it when it's become an open rebellion, right? You got a territory and they're just like rampaging, talking about how they want to secede, something like that. Well, now you got a bigger problem. Now you got to call in the troops. But if you live there and you heard your spies whispering to you, oh, we've heard so-and-so at the cafes, right? You'd be like, there's a conspiracy afoot. Stomp it out, you see? But if you're far away, well, now the news is going to take longer to travel, especially in this time. There ain't no cell phones, right? So for them, it's like a guy on a horse. So it's even more late, right? And then they are beyond remedy. Besides this, the province will not be plundered by your officials. Notice this. Your own officials plundering your territory. The subjects will be pleased with having direct recourse to their prince. That's a good point. Does the prince being close to his subjects make them more happy? Now, this is interesting about someone being so out of touch that they no longer have the respect of the common people. They're almost abstract, sort of like caricatures, these sort of other, like, okay, they parade once in a while, but we don't really know them, we're not really attached. But if you're close, that actually helps people feel like they have more of your ear, right? Like there's more potential there to solve a problem, which, as he said, yes, you will see problems when they arise more readily, and you'll be able to solve them before they snowball into something bigger, right? And wanting to be good, they will have more reason to love him. And wanting to be otherwise, they'll have more reason to fear him. Did you see that? You're close, they'll love you more, but they'll also fear you more, right? When the cat's away, the mice will play. Well, when the fat cat comes home, someone's getting eaten. You know what I mean? That's a very good point. Any outsider who might want to attack that state would be more hesitant. Oh, you see? So, you're there. Your enemies know, okay, the leader's there. Obviously, he's the leader for a reason. If he's there, it's going to be more difficult to take the town because he's going to lead by example. He's the sovereign. He's going to strategize. He's going to lead the defense or the offense and wipe us out, right? But if it's like a smaller area and he's not there ever and he doesn't live there and the people aren't really attached to him, they might be more ripe to the plucking, right? So that as long as the ruler resides there, he will lose it only with the greatest difficulty. Aha. So that also implies that if a ruler resides within an area, he will help defend that area, and he will make the enemy have a very difficult time taking it. That implies nationalism, though. It's not like a sellout globalist who lives there, doesn't actually care about the territorial aspect or the subjects. And the subjects don't care about that person because they see them as a sort of bureaucrat globalist. That isn't really relevant. This is a very interesting thing to speculate on. The other and better remedy is to send colonies into one or two places, which would be, as it were, the shackles of the state. To send a better remedy to some interesting colonies as a remedy. Shackles of the state. For it is necessary either to do this or keep a large force of men at arms and infantry there. So look at that. You have the colony angle or a standing army. Think about America. King George wants the new territory. He wants to hold America. He sends colonists. Then the colonists want to rebel. He tries to do standing army to hold his territory. From the colonists he sent, who started being born there and living there and not wanting to be ruled by the king, and they rebelled. He didn't live there. He was far away. So the people didn't love him. perfect example. America is literally a perfect example of what Machiavelli is talking about. Because the people in America, hey, we got some far off monarch. He ain't living here. He's not even on the same continent, and we're gonna listen to him? Yeah, we were colonists, but we're on new land, baby. He's not even here. We don't love him. Who's this king? We don't even know what he looks like, some of the people, right? King George III? What? But then George Washington comes into the picture, right? George Washington, he's living there, right? He's living there. He's talking to people. They get the love for him. Boom. He leads the rebellion. Then, how do the founding fathers prevent the king from taking it back through force again, even though they declared the Constitution? They say in the Constitution, no standing armies, so that the king cannot bribe any state to rebel against the others and then lead another rebellion to take back the colonies, right? It's very smart. The colonies will not cost much, so that with little or no expense on his part, the prince can send them out and maintain them, and he only injures those whose lands and houses are taken to give to the new inhabitants, and they constitute but a small part of the state, and those who are injured, remaining poor and disunited, can never do him any harm, while all others, on the one hand, are injured and therefore should be easily pacified. So this sounds kind of a little sad though, right? Send the colonists, they're gonna maybe get injured and stuff, and the people are conquering gonna get injured, but you can pacify, right? And on the other, are fearful of doing wrong, lest they should be treated like those who have been stripped of their property. Ha! Notice this, what did he just say here? So you send the colonists. They ransack, take that territory, right? They strip the people of their property by the prince's authority. The colonies do not have as much power as the forces closer to home, right? If the colonists don't listen, they can always get colonized themselves and have their stuff destroyed by a new colony. You see? Send a colony, you don't listen, send a new colony, wipe them out. I conclude that these colonies cost nothing, are more loyal, and give less offense, and the injured parties are unable to do harm, being poor and disunited, as I have said. For it must be noted that men must either be caressed or else destroyed. Ha 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 ha. Caressed or destroyed. So, smooth them feathers, placate, right? You want some gifts, you want something, what do you need? You want land, what do you want? Or complete annihilation. So it's join or die. pretty much. Wow. Because they will revenge themselves for small injuries, but cannot do so for serious ones. Now that's an interesting dynamic. Revenge for the small injuries, but for serious ones, what will they be able to do? Thus, the injury done to a man must be such that there is no need to fear his vengeance. So the injury has to be to the degree that you won't fear the vengeance. Look at that. But by keeping troops there instead of colonists, one will spend a great deal more. Interesting, because the colonists can become self-sufficient. Farming, eating, chicken eggs, commerce, whereas the army needs constant resupplyment of provisions. Very interesting, right? Colonists can have babies, create little families, soldiers, train them, arm them, send them over there, a lot more. Being obliged to consume all revenues of the state in order to guard it, so that the acquisition turns into a loss, and much greater harm is done, since their entire state is injured by the army having to move its quarters from place to place. So the army having to move around to maintain order is going to cause some, a slowdown in the swift tightening of their grip. Whereas colonists, they're going to spread out. Right? This inconvenience is felt by all, and everyone becomes an enemy. And these are enemies who come to do harm, because though beaten, they remain in their own homes in every way. Then a garrison is useless as colonies are useful. Garrison? versus colony. So what is better? He's saying a colony is better. It really, because he said here the garrisons have to move, whereas the colonies are stagnant and will start to manufacture goods, right? They'll make their own economy instead of waiting for a coin from the treasury. Very, very astute.